I said from the beginning that there was something wrong with the whole story about Jason. The more I think about it, the more this whole situation feels way too clean, way too convenient, and maybe that's exactly why we should be paying attention right now. Because if Jason really spent all that time trapped inside a secret WSB facility in Indonesia, if he really endured whatever happened behind those walls, are we honestly supposed to believe the story ends with him simply coming home? Guys, that may be the version everyone wants to believe, but what if the truth is far darker than that? Right now, all signs seem to point toward Jason eventually returning to Port Charles. We know he's connected to a secret WSB operation. We know Anna appears to be involved in the aftermath. We know there are already hints of physical trauma and psychological damage. On the surface, it looks like another rescue story. But if you ask me, it feels like we're looking at the wrong mystery. The real mystery may not be whether Jason survives. The real mystery may be whether the man who comes back is Jason at all. And here's where things start getting very interesting. What if WSB never intended to release Jason? What if the organization realized he was far more valuable as an asset than as a prisoner? And what if they needed the entire world to believe he was gone forever? The possibility sounds outrageous at first, yet the deeper you look into it, the more it starts to make sense. WSB has crossed lines before. We've seen secret operations. We've seen memory manipulation. We've seen psychological programming. We've seen agents turned into weapons without even realizing it. Dante is probably the biggest example. For a long time, he didn't even understand what had been done to him. Certain triggers could activate buried programming. Certain memories became distorted. Certain reactions no longer belonged to him. Now imagine something even bigger. Imagine Jason becoming the ultimate version of that experiment. Not a victim, not a prisoner, a weapon. And if that is where this story is heading, then the shocking twist may happen long before Jason ever appears on screen. Because there is a scenario that keeps nagging at me. A scenario where WSB announces Jason is dead. Maybe there is an accident. Maybe there is an explosion. Maybe there is a classified operation gone wrong. The details could be anything. What matters is the outcome. A body arrives. A funeral follows. Port Charles mourns. Everyone cries. Everyone grieves. Everyone finally accepts that Jason is gone. But what if that body isn't Jason? What if it's a carefully prepared substitute? What if the identification process is controlled from the beginning and suddenly the entire town becomes part of a lie without even knowing it? The thing that makes this theory feel possible is the simple fact that a fake death would solve every problem for WSB. No family searching, no friends asking questions, no investigations, no rescue attempts, no one looking for a man they believe is already buried. That would give WSB unlimited time to do whatever they want behind closed doors. And what they might want could be terrifying, because the reports surrounding Jason's captivity already suggest he may have suffered extensive physical and emotional trauma. Now imagine months of isolation, months of conditioning, months of psychological manipulation, months of carefully dismantling everything that makes Jason who he is. The goal wouldn't necessarily be to erase him completely. In fact, the truth could be far more complicated than that. It seems possible that WSB would want fragments of Jason to remain. His instincts, his combat skills, his intelligence, his survival abilities. Those qualities make him valuable. The emotional connections are the problem. Sonny is the problem. Carly is the problem. Danny is the problem. Every person Jason would normally protect becomes a liability from WSB's perspective. So what if those memories are buried? What if they're locked away? What if they're rewritten? And suddenly Jason isn't Jason anymore. At least not on the surface. Meanwhile, life in Port Charles moves forward. That's the heartbreaking part. Because everyone could genuinely believe he's gone. Danny may struggle to cope. Carly may attempt to move on. Sonny may carry guilt over not being able to save his best friend. The emotional fallout alone could fuel months of storylines. But underneath all of it, another story may be unfolding in secret. A story nobody sees coming. Because somewhere far away, Jason could still be alive. Training, obeying orders, completing missions, becoming someone entirely different. And if that happens, the eventual reveal could be absolutely explosive. Imagine mysterious attacks beginning to occur. Not random attacks, professional attacks, precise attacks. Operations carried out by someone with elite skills. someone who leaves almost no evidence behind. At first, nobody connects the dots. Why would they? Jason is dead. The funeral happened. The grave exists. The chapter is supposedly closed, yet strange clues may begin surfacing. A witness notices a familiar fighting style. An investigator recognizes a tactical pattern. A surveillance image captures a shadowy figure that looks disturbingly familiar. Little by little, doubt begins to grow. And I think Anna could become one of the first people to notice. After all, if anyone understands how deep WSB secrets can go, it's her. Maybe she starts finding inconsistencies. Maybe classified records don't match official reports. Maybe someone inside the organization is hiding something. And once that suspicion begins, there may be no turning back. Because the deeper Anna digs, the more dangerous the truth becomes. The most emotional part of this entire theory, though, comes later. Because if Jason eventually returns, I don't think we're talking about a happy reunion. Not at first. In fact, it may be the exact opposite. What if Jason comes back to Port Charles on a mission? What if he isn't there to reconnect with family? What if he's there because WSB sent him? What if he views everyone around him as targets rather than loved ones? That possibility changes everything. Suddenly, Sonny isn't trying to save his friend from danger. Sonny is the danger, or at least that's what Jason has been programmed to believe. And can you imagine how devastating that would be? The man who once protected Sonny with absolute loyalty, now becoming the greatest threat Sonny has ever faced. The man who would have sacrificed everything for Carly, now looking straight through her as if she's a stranger. The man Danny desperately wants back, not even recognizing his own son. That's the kind of emotional destruction soap operas live for. And honestly, it feels exactly like the type of massive twist that could redefine multiple storylines at once. But here's where I think things become even more complicated. Because programming never seems to work perfectly forever. There's always a crack. There's always a weakness. There's always a memory that refuses to disappear. Maybe it's Danny. Maybe it's Carly. Maybe it's Sonny. Maybe it's a moment from Jason's past that WSB couldn't fully erase. And if even one memory survives, the entire operation could begin falling apart. That's why I don't think this story would end with Jason simply becoming a villain. The real drama may come from watching him fight his way back to himself. The battle wouldn't just be against WSB, it would be against his own mind, against the conditioning, against the false identity forced upon him. And honestly, that's where this theory starts feeling incredibly dangerous for everyone involved. Because if Jason eventually remembers who he is, then WSB's biggest secret may be exposed. The fake death, the cover up, the programming, the lies, everything. And organizations like WSB don't usually let secrets like that survive, which brings us back to the question that keeps bothering me. Maybe the body that returns to Port Charles really won't be Jason. Maybe the funeral everyone attends will be based on a lie. Maybe Jason is still sitting somewhere in the shadows, being transformed into something WSB can control. Or maybe we're only seeing the first layer of an even bigger conspiracy. Because if Jason's supposed death is only the beginning, then what exactly is WSB preparing him for? And who will be the first person in Port Charles to realize that the man they buried might still be alive?